Hey everybody, welcome to your readings for the week. These are the readings for the week ending October 1st. We're officially in October at the end of this week, which is kind of crazy, but kind of exciting. I have to say that I've had a headache all day, so I hope that these readings come out okay. I took some time and it's kind of gone. Um, but my eyes are just a little weird because of the contacts, and I don't know. So, in any case, that's what's going on, and we will just try and work past it. If it seems a little off, I apologize. That has everything to do with it. We're gonna go ahead and get started with Jordan. We still are having an opposition issue between Jupiter and, well, Jupiter and everybody, actually. We've got the sun, the moon, Mercury, which is still retrograde this week, unfortunately, and Venus. They're all kind of crowded together, and Jupiter is sort of in opposition with all of it, which is it was really sucky. I mean, that is a pretty hardcore difficult thing to take, especially with the moon being involved in it, because it oftentimes can become an emotional thing. Luckily, the moon is only involved right at the beginning of the week, and then it leaves and starts to smooth some of it out, and it is going to break up. There is good news. It is going to break up. Mercury is retrograde, so it's moving out of it also. So it starts off as like this ridiculous craziness, and then the crazy still there. It's just not quite as bad as you drift on to the end of the week, basically. Um, the situation in terms of the opposition has everything to do with your responsibilities at home versus your responsibilities at work. It's been an ongoing issue, yes. And as always, Mercury retrogrades have a tendency to exasperate little problems that you have fairly often, and it just blows it up into something that you can't ignore anymore, because this is just an ongoing issue that needs to be resolved. And this can be in your home life. This can be an issue with your spouse. It can be an issue at work. In all honesty, there's not much change there in either one. So I feel like a lot of this has to do with you being able to identify certain communication patterns between yourself and others around you that just aren't working at all. And actually taking a step back and rewording your part of the conversation, just to see if by rewording it, it sort of changes the flow of the conversation, if that makes sense. It seems weird, and oftentimes we're in this place where we're just like, well, I can't do blah 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 because this person is always doing blah blah blah. And unfortunately, when you say that, it totally takes your power to change it or do anything about it away, and therefore it never changes. So you're both communicating in the same way and getting the same results. If you take the opportunity to change the way you approach it, the way you communicate it, I'm just going to come out and say it, because you and I are very similar in terms of personality. And we're very strong women. Okay. And with that being said, um, have a tendency to sort of just bulldoze our way in and say, hey, this is the way it should be, right? This is the smart way of doing it. It's the only way of doing it. Let's just do it this way. And, and everything is great. And then you have all of these male figures looking back at you like, I'm sorry, is she talking? It's so annoying. really just want to line them all up and slap them. I totally understand because I have my own lineup over here. I've learned that if you approach it in a different way, a softer way, maybe bringing it up as an idea rather than just coming in and saying or seeming to say this is how it needs to be done, this is the only way that it can be done. It is taken a little bit easier, and therefore it may turn into a different conversation. Maybe even there's more openness for discussion, if that makes sense. So the more you tweak that around and play with it and change it up, the more opportunities you have to see where you can actually change the entire communication pattern by simply changing yours first. Okay, sorry about that. My computer decides every week now to do this stupid thing in the middle of my reading video. Only very strange. Anyways, that's what I have for you, Jordan. I have to say one more thing actually, about all of this. Because I'm sort of learning this lesson myself, honestly, relearning this lesson myself. And I tend to relearn this lesson a lot. It's so hard. And everything inside of you just wants to get so pissed off. And everything inside of you wants it to change. And the more you fight against the way it is, it's like the more you lose. I mean, that's totally how it feels, anyways, to me. With all of that being said, it really does take less energy, and it really is so much easier to find another way around it rather than constantly hit it head on, if that makes sense. You're a ram. I mean, I can see what's happening because that's what a ram does, and that's okay. But when you find yourself constantly doing that, you need to take a step back and go, okay, this is going to give me a headache if it continues. So maybe instead of trying to ram the gate open, I'm going to go down the fence and see if there's a hole I can climb under, which would be a lot easier to get in. So that's what I have for you. And I'm going to move on to Darcy. So we got all kinds of good stuff this week, actually, which I'm really happy to report, honestly. I still have that square between Uranus and Saturn. They're both still retrograde. Wah, wah, wah. I don't even want to talk about it, to be honest with you. It's been going on so long that I'm just sick and tired of hearing it. So let's focus on the good stuff instead, because we continue this week to have a grand trine in all the earth signs, which is awesome. With Uranus, of course, in Taurus, Pluto in Capricorn, as well as Mercury in Virgo, and all three are retrograde. This is actually really interesting when you look at it. Uranus's focus is right on the cusp of those you love and your daily schedule, which at times it's really easy and you love to add those people into your daily schedule. And sometimes it's not. And when it's not, it's difficult for you because you don't have that time with them. It's difficult for them because they don't have that time with you. It's just, it's difficult all around. Mercury's retrograde is focused right on the cusp of your long-term goals and your career. So there's a lot of energy going towards looking at your long-term career goals. And I kind of feel actually like you've been going through, I want to call it a phase, but it's the only word that I can come up with, that you're going through a process right now where you're really rethinking what you want to be doing for a living. It's not that what you're doing is bad or that you hate it or anything. It's just, I almost want to say that you're going back and forth between I'd rather do more with my career, but there's also that in the back of your head going, I'm just way too old to make a whole career change thingy, which I have to go on, because you're never too old to make a change, period. And I know you know that, and I know you're processing that too in your mind. If that is the case and this is going on, here's your confirmation. By all means, do it. It's all lining up to do that right now, to get that started, if you can. And then we have Pluto, and Pluto is focused on the past. Pluto's all about your personal power, and when it's retrograde, it does sort of promote this feeling of not having any power, which kind of sucks. And when it's focused on the past, it has a lot to do with remembering other times where you felt like you had no power, and reminding yourself that there was nothing you could do about it. And even if you tried to do something about it, all went to shit anyways. And your brain's gonna trick you. It always does, right? Because this is part of the grand trine, though, I feel that this is less about whether or not you're remembering the right information, but more about using that time. You get your power when you focus on the things that you were good at, when you focus on the times where you kicked ass. And that's where you get your power, because the more you focus on the times where you kicked ass, the more likely you are to put that energy into kicking ass right now. And being a Taurus and being a fixed sign, I think, is difficult, because Tauruses hate change, and yet they get really frustrated when they can't change things that they want to change, if that makes sense. And they sort of get into this push me, pull you argument with themselves in their own heads, kind of a thing. And it just takes up time. Nothing actually ever comes of fixing the problem. It just takes up a bunch of time that could be used elsewhere. So the grand trine comes together to remind you of that, to give you that extra boost of energy to move forward, regardless of what it is. It's going to be hard. Is it going to be hard? It might be hard. Actually doing anything new, any kind of change is hard. But whether it's hard or not doesn't mean it won't be worth it in some way, shape, or form. And I feel like if you're worrying, you're worrying needlessly. Okay. And well, your grandfather just came and said, quit wasting time. I'm gonna leave it at that. So that is what I have for you, Darcy. And I'm going to move on to Connie. Nada, nothing, zilch in Leo, no planets in Leo, nothing. Even Ceres has moved out of Leo. There's literally nothing there. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? It really depends. I think there is really no good or bad, because it is what it is. That's what astrology teaches us, is that it is life. You have things that you go through that are good, and then you have things that you go through that are not good. And unfortunately, some people have an imbalance of that. I guess you would think it would not be unfortunate if the imbalance was they had nothing but good and no bad, but in all honesty, that comes up to bite you in the butt too, eventually. So with no planet influences, it just means it is what it is. Mercury is still retrograde. It's not retrograde in Leo, but being that it is retrograde, you're always having to deal with typical Mercury retrograde stupid stuff. One of those things being, they're showing me a piece of paper and a pen and signatures. This week, it's really important when paperwork is being signed that you check and double check to make sure that everything was signed where it's supposed to be signed. I'm seeing one of those signature lines skipped and causing a delay because you have to go back to get the signatures. Not your signature, it's their signature. So that's one thing that is coming up for you. Your grandmother is coming through, and she is showing me you wearing shirts with lots of flowers on them. Again, these flowers are coming up. We just had a conversation yesterday about flowers, but she's showing me that you are wearing the flowers, and I feel like in the job that you have and the competitiveness that you have, the in terms of sexism, we'll put it that way. Not that you are competing with any men at all, but it's natural, I think, for us women to sort of step into this masculine role, and it's not about being masculine. It's like we have to be like them in order to succeed. And she's just saying, showing the flowers all around you has something to do with femininity. It's a reminder that your femininity is really important. I feel like, not being overly feminine, obviously, but just softening. And in doing so, it's softening words. And I feel like there's a client that is going to need less direct and to the point and more flowery language, if that makes any sense at all. I feel you're gonna know who this is. It is a male. I don't see anybody else with him, so I'm not sure if he's married or not. That makes sense. Yeah. And none of that was to say that you're not feminine. Okay. Just want to put that out there. Okay. None of that meant that you weren't feminine enough. But that was more towards this particular individual, I think, in terms of her visualization of, I guess, what that looks like. If that makes sense. Um, I also see somebody having car trouble, but it's not you. But it either affects you, as in like you're meeting a client and they have car trouble and can't make it, or if it's like somebody in the family, you may be called on to help, if that makes sense. I kind of want to say that I'm leaning more towards this being something that exists within your work schedule more than the family. The last thing they're showing me is bananas. Maybe it has to do with potassium. And I don't have any clue. And a bunch of monkeys running around, jumping around, eating bananas. Hmm. Well, let me put it this way. The very end of the week, there's a mutable grand cross. You're fixed, so that's good. At least it's not, you're not in the middle of it, okay? But when a grand cross happens, you don't have to be in the middle of it in order to be affected by it. And this could be the fact that that day it just may be bananas, and that would be the first of the month on Saturday, the very end of the week. Mutable grand crosses, mutable energy is all over the place. So we fix signs, we like a schedule, a routine. It makes us comfortable. We know what's going to happen. Mutable energy is fly by the seat of your pants. Nothing is going to be on time or on schedule. It's all just bananas. So maybe be prepared for that. It sucks, but the way I visualize it is if everybody you knew was at a park and they were all running around screaming, and you're just kind of standing in the middle of it trying to tell everybody that it's not that big of a deal, but they're all running around screaming anyways. In all honesty, if I were in that situation, I'd just walk away and let them all run around and scream. Screw it. So that's what I have for you. Put your double bubble up. I'm gonna move on to Jenny, my other lovely Leo lady. There is nothing in Leo. Nothing. Zero zilch. Absolutely nothing. Focus is on long-term goals. Like, I kind of get a couple of things from that. One, I really see you planning a trip. I think this has come up before also. I'm having deja vu with it, if that makes sense. I really see you planning a trip. I feel like this is something you've been thinking about for a long time. Maybe even saying, okay, when I have a little bit more time, I'm gonna plan this. I kind of see you really sitting down. And just getting serious. That makes sense. And if you haven't done it yet, it's time to get started. And I think the reason why this is coming up right now is you've been wanting to do it for a long time. You've come up with a lot of different excuses as to why you haven't done it yet. There's this beautiful, gorgeous, very sweet lady in spirit who is just like, you tell her to go do it right now. Just get it started. Um, you can't worry about what could happen now because anything can happen. And she's telling me that lately you've had a lot of that panicky stuff going on up here. Just a lot of worry and crazy, and it's so much harder to deal with right now than it was before. And you can't really explain why. It's not like anything brought it on. Well, except for life in general. You need to take some time this week to sit down and to organize your goals. This lady in spirit is just, I can't describe her any other way other than she's like a big warm fuzzy blanket. Her energy is just that comfortable, and it's like, if I were a little girl, I'd want to just climb up on her lap and sleep there. She's nice and squishy. And she's just the sweetest woman in the world. Just at this time. It's not that you haven't put you first. You have been, and you've been doing a beautiful job. And this is big. It's a big trip. You got to take it out of someday and start planning it. She says, or you're never going to do it. By the way, that taking a day to prioritize is also called me time, because this is something you need for you. This lady's showing me her pinching your cheek. I also am picking up towards the end of the week. There is a mutable Grand Cross on Saturday, which is not in Leo, thank goodness. You're not directly affected. But it makes everything crazy. Mutable energy has no direction. It's just running hither and thither and kind of crazy, if that makes sense. Again, I see you in the middle of it, kind of observing, not necessarily in the middle of it. As long as you don't jump in the middle of it, which I don't think you're gonna do anyway. So you know what? Get a beer and just kick back and watch. 'Cause, I mean, what else is there to do, right? So that is what I have for you, Jenny. And I am going to move on to Linda. Hi, Linda. Okay, well, let me just cut right to the chase. Okay. Get some water first. Mercury's retrograde still. It's in Virgo at this point. It's in opposition of Neptune. And Neptune is pretty much focused right on the cusp of the home and how you think about things, how you perceive things, your mindset, your perception. Mercury is right on the cusp of your career and your goals, and that kind of melds those career goals together. Okay. So, on one hand, this sort of opposition does create a sort of conflict between the two, the home and the career. You're trying to focus on the career, you got the things at home. That's been going on for like weeks now. Okay, we've talked about it, right? Well, it's not just an opposition anymore. And at the end of this week, the moon moves into opposition with Mars, which is squared with both of these planets to create what's called a mutable grand cross. And a mutable grand cross, first of all, the grand cross is the biggest challenge that you can get. In all the mutable signs, thank goodness you're a Virgo. Because, well, Virgo is a mutable sign. It's in the earth mutable sign. So it has some direction. The other three damn near do not, right? They're just hither and thither and running all over the place. And most Virgos kind of jump from thing to thing to thing. Also, hint. So, yes, it makes them fantastic multitaskers. It really does. But it also can indicate an energy that has no direction and it's just kind of sort of going everywhere on a day that you're supposed to have off, or most people have off. But I'm almost positive, I'm willing to bet money that you don't have Saturdays off of work, probably very often. The issue here really is we're bringing a challenge with our relationships and ourselves into this mix right at the end of the week. And what that means, because the moon is in Sagittarius and is what's creating this challenge, which is also why it only lasts for a day. This is a situation where you literally start to feel like you're spinning. You can't focus on anything anymore. You have no time for you, zero time for you. You're tired. You're actually tired, really tired. And you got all this stuff to do. And everybody's looking to Linda to do it. Oh my God, because Linda's going to fix everything. And Linda's over here going, you know what? F the lot of you. I'm done. Linda is left the building. This is exactly how I feel this is going to play out. And that is happening because your energy is spread way too many places. I feel like by the end of the day, you're going to be so exhausted that you will actually fall right to sleep. Just right to sleep. I am concerned. I'm impressed. Trust me, with everything that you can do, I'm impressed. But I am a little bit concerned also that you may be spreading your energy just a little bit too thin, and that under normal day-to-day circumstances, it's not a big deal. But when something big comes in, it could be a very big deal. And that's what I'm concerned about. And this mutable Grand Cross on Saturday could represent a very big deal. Just letting you know. Because you have a week, as long as you watch these at the beginning of the week, you have a week to get in some time to rest your energy, to be able to deal with the big thing. And it may not even be a big thing, right? But I almost want to say, if you take the time to rest, it won't be a big thing at all. If you don't, it will be a big thing. So it can go either way. The pendulum is swinging. We just don't know where it's going to land. I guess that's all up to you. I think that's what I'm getting from that. So that's one thing. Here's the good thing. We still this week, and I think it starts to break up at the end of next week, actually, this beautiful grand trine. I love Earth grand trines. When all the Earth signs come together, it's like magic. Things just get done. Projects that have been sitting forever are all of a sudden finished, right? That's how that energy feels to me. And what's interesting actually about this grand trine is it involves Uranus, which is in Taurus, Pluto, which is in Capricorn, Mercury, of course, which is in Virgo, and all three planets are retrograde, which means all of their energies are mirrored back at you, or all of their energies are pointing you to the energy that you should be using right now. Now, with Mercury retrograde, to me, that tells me enough talk, let's see action. Pluto is all about personal power. And retrograde kind of feels like you have no personal power. And its focus on the past is a little bit tricky because you would think that looking at your past mistakes would make you less powerful unless you're looking at your past triumphs. And it's your past triumphs that are actually what's fueling you forward right now. Uranus is focused right on the cusp of those you love and your schedule. And I know that you have a hard time arranging. It's like I've seen your schedule. I have seen your schedule. Any extracurricular time is hard. Like if one of your children just happened to drop, I'm gonna be in town next Tuesday. Oh my gosh, that would be so stressful for you, I'm sure. It's very difficult. It creates a challenge. But I also look at it in terms of Uranus is very much an out of the box. We're rebellious. We're not traditional. We go against the grain. We want change. You know, the age of Aquarius, everything changes, and Uranus is Aquarius planet. Actually, in retrograde, this is all about handling these situations in the tried and true way, and the way that you always have, because that's the way it works. It keeps everything balanced. So rather than changing anything, you don't want to change anything. You want to keep going the way that you always have gone. That Mercury retrograde is also reminding me of something as well. You don't want to speak about your plans. You want to let everybody know what your plans are once it's done. Okay. And you lay it out there. There's something about talking about what you're going to do before you do it that just doesn't sit right with me this week for whatever reason, whether it be because somebody's going to steal your idea or because, you know, it creates other complications in some way. Better to just do what it is that you're going to do and then put it out there. This is how we're doing that. So that's what I have for you this week, Linda. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm going to take a little mini break before I move on to Theresa. Okay, we are moving on to my Libra, Theresa. Sun and Venus in Libra in opposition with Jupiter, which is retrograde. So that presents a little bit of a challenge. Jupiter is all about growth and expansion, and it's focused on the home. in retrograde, it would kind of feel like there may be changes in the home or in your home situation that you want to make, and you just can't find a way to do that right now. And I don't really see this as wanting to move necessarily. I feel that it has more to do with, just organizing things, changing things around, things that don't seem to be working for you. If that makes sense. The Sun and Venus are focused on your career, and that would kind of tell me that work is taking up all of your time, and then that has a lot to do with why you haven't been able to make the changes that you want. The good news is both of these planets are in a trine with Pluto, actually, which is in Capricorn. But normally a trine is in their air sign, but Capricorn is very close to that cusp. And the Sun and Venus are also very close to that cusp of Libra and Virgo. So it's a very rare out of sign trine, is what it is. Pluto's also retrograde, and Pluto's all about your source of power, how powerful you feel you are. With Pluto in retrograde, you don't really feel all that powerful, unfortunately. And with Pluto's focus on the past, there is an element of sort of focusing on the past a lot, specifically times where you didn't have the power to change things. And I think you know what I'm talking about. Two things are coming out of this. One, you have way too much time to think because you drive all day. And I think that it's a good idea for you to find ways of distracting yourself. I'm sorry, my contacts are just bugging the heck out of me today. Finding different ways of entertaining yourself so you're not in your head quite as much. That would help things out a lot. I think that sometimes too much time thinking about things it's nice to remember it's not good to dwell. We'll just put it that way. If you, I guess, maybe try and focus on your strengths, focus on times where you totally kicked ass. This is what this trine is all about. It's helping you to move forward in your career. But you also want to manage what you're doing during that time that you're working, if that makes sense. I do see the possibility of a raise or promotion, if not coming up this week. Talks about it will probably start this week, or negotiations, which is really good. Mercury is retrograde, though. Even though it's not in Libra anymore, you want to make sure that if you're signing any paperwork that you fully read and understand what you're signing so that there's no screw up. Okay. Just take the little bit of extra time. That's really the best thing that anybody can do. The only other thing that I kind of feel is coming up for you this week is I want to say well, let me just put it this way. There's a mutable grand cross at the end of the week. And even though you're not a mutable sign and it doesn't directly affect you, mutable grand crosses are pretty major challenges, and they do just make everything around you just ridiculously crazy. So it's Saturday the 1st is when this happens, and I kind of just sort of see this out of nowhere emotional outburst coming from somewhere. And I don't think it's coming from you necessarily, but I think it's going to rope you in or try to rope you into it, if that makes sense. So just be prepared for that. It won't be a surprise, obviously. Now, giving you time to kind of sort of put yourself in a, you're gonna need to be the diplomat. You can't take sides in this. You're gonna need, it's like you're called in to sort of smooth things out. Well, actually, you're called in to choose the side, but your ultimate goal is to come in and smooth things out. That makes sense. Um, that's why we have Libras, right? You guys are just awesome at doing that. It sucks because it probably feels like it's your whole life, but I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you about that. But that's what I have for you, Theresa. I am going to move on to Regina. Nothing in Scorpio. No, you're on the cusp of Libra, but you're on the Scorpio side, and quite frankly, having this break with no planets for a couple of weeks is really good. Because when planets do move in, it's I'm not gonna say it's gonna be really bad, but it is going to be difficult. So we'll just enjoy this no planets for now. Focus is still on the inner self this week, which is annoying. Necessary, but annoying nonetheless. I'm kind of picking up on a couple of things actually coming up this week. One, I get this really deep, how to describe this. My contacts are driving me crazy today, just so you know, so my eyes are all weird. I get this very deep, it's like a very deep pain, very deep hurt, but very deep anger when it's like when somebody says you're not doing your job, or there's a problem and someone places the blame on you, if that makes sense. And I do see this coming up this week. But I also kind of see this coming up this week as a means of maybe taking the time to understand where that pain comes from, if that makes sense, to take a look at the root of it. I'm going to pause. Okay, sorry about that. Yes. So I kind of get the feeling in this situation, this is something that is coming up around a specific group of people, and this specific group of people kind of does that. They're just like that. And you're fed up. And to be honest with you, I really feel that you don't always speak up when something like that happens, and I feel like this is an opportunity to do so. You don't have to be mean. You don't necessarily want to bring your stinger out, but there are diplomatic ways to come out and say, hey, I don't appreciate being treated like that anymore. And no, people won't like it, but that's neither here nor there. In this situation, I feel this is something that you need to do. The other thing that I'm being shown for you coming up this week, I'm actually, I don't know if this is money that you've been waiting for. I see extra money coming in. I'm not sure where it's coming from. I sort of get like a surprise, like I wasn't even expecting this money, and I don't think it wasn't that it was because you weren't expecting it at all, but maybe it's come earlier than you anticipated, something along those lines, which is good news. Anytime money comes in for any reason, it's always good news. But I really get a surprise with this. If that tells you anything, I'm not exactly sure where that's coming from. I'm not sure why, but I'm seeing a little white dog. I don't know if that's somebody associated with somebody that you know who's currently here, or if that's associated with somebody that you knew in spirit. It's a little, I don't know what the breed is called, but it's got a very fluffy face. That's the only way I can describe it. It's a little dog with the white with a very fluffy face. There's something significant with that person this week. And it doesn't have to be a significant date. I mean, it can be, of course, but I feel that there might be a significant conversation with this person, or there's something. This person will take center stage this week in some way, shape, or form. Not in a bad way. I don't see it as necessarily being a bad way, unless it's remembering somebody that passed and there's an anniversary around that. I was gonna say there's no way to make that good, but there is actually. I like to take those dates to honor that person in whatever way I connect with. For instance, earlier last week was would have been my husband's grandmother's birthday, and she passed, so I happened to see some lavender in my travels and picked some and brought it into my car because that was something that was very much attached to her, a memory attached to her. Yeah, and it's not the dog that has a significant role this week, it's the person attached to the dog. I do I do want to specify that. But the dog could have something to do with it. You never know. Okay, I see something with your right foot. Could be the right foot, or I could be mirroring it. So it could be either one, but I'm specifically being shown the right. It's either the foot or the ankle. I'm just gonna put it this way. If it keeps on bothering you, get it looked at. It's not gonna go away. Get it looked at. I'm gonna leave it at that. That's what I have for you, Regina. I'm gonna move on to Theresa Sheppard. Hi, Theresa. From wherever you happen to be when you watch this video. Nothing in Scorpio this week, in terms of planets, anyways. Well, actually, I lied. I totally lied. The moon is going to be in Scorpio this week. Moving into opposition with Uranus on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Well, we'll just put it this way. It looks to me, and actually it's not an opposition, but a T-square, because Saturn is very much a part of this too. It looks to me like scheduling issues could come up at some point this week, which could be a great big giant challenge. With Saturn's focus on how you think about it, and Aquarius is known for overthinking, we're actually pointing at our own responsibilities to how we think about things. And I think that in my opinion of you anyways, you're really good at sort of talking yourself through those kind of instances so you don't necessarily get over frustrated every time. I just think that this week is going to be a little bit more difficult than other times. I do feel there's something underlying going on behind that. Maybe other frustrations that are simmering, that these little frustrations just get a lot bigger, if that makes sense. So have a little patience with yourself. I know how much patience you have with everything else, but I feel it's important this week that you have some patience with yourself. Because you may react in ways that you normally don't, in ways that you don't want to. In ways that prove that you're human, just like the rest of us. So that's one thing that comes up. Luckily, it's a pretty short-term thing, so it doesn't take up the entire week. I do see I actually see these reschedule. I keep the word I'm getting is reschedule. Rescheduling things happening even at the beginning of the week. It's just when it gets to Thursday, it just gets a little crazy. I think is kind of how that goes. But I also see time opening up in your schedule to come home. Time opening up in your schedule for rest. Although I'm pretty sure you're gonna find something to fill that time with, but I see you resting in there too, which is good. I also want to say that there is an opportunity to catch up with somebody you haven't seen in a while, which is important. Something fun. I mean, I see you out to lunch with a friend, something like that. Smiling and laughing and just having a wonderful time. And as stressed out as you may be, you need this. So don't talk yourself out of it. You need to do this. I also see you toying with the idea of doing some shopping, maybe on this trip with a girlfriend. Let me just say that I feel like you're going to come across something beautiful and try and talk yourself out of it because it's a bit expensive, but I don't think you should talk yourself out. I think you deserve whatever it is. So if that helps. That's what I have for you, Theresa. I am going to move on to my Sagittarians. And you know what? Taking my freaking contacts out because I just cannot take it no more. I'd rather be blind than have to deal with this nightmare that is going on here with my contact lenses. You see that shit? I don't even have to look at it. It's awesome. Okay. Now I'm blind and I can't see a thing, but I know what I'm doing here, so it's okay. Focus is on self. It's all about you. Bitch, it's all about you. And I know I'm talking to somebody who goes, oh, it's all about me. Okay. And has no problem taking the time to dance around naked in the house with a crown and a glass of wine for an hour or so because it's all about you. Didn't need that visual, but I got it anyways. And that's okay. I kind of feel like this week is a very important week to set some personal goals. And what's funny is that when I'm seeing you do this and going, okay, these are goals for me, whatever they are. But as you're trying to come up with your plan, somehow your career infiltrates into there. Somehow your marriage infiltrates into there. Somehow the kids infiltrate in there. And I see you going, wait, no, these are for me, right? I totally understand the fight against all of it. You need your space. But you have to remember that fighting isn't going to help. Fighting is going to keep the fight going. And we don't want to do that anymore, do we? So that's one thing I have for you. The other thing that I have is I am okay, this is weird, but I'm just gonna come out with it. Your balcony that is off the kitchen there. I'm seeing a repair that needs to be done, and it needs to be a priority. I don't see the balcony falling off the house, but what I do see is if this repair isn't done soon, it's going to cost you a hell of a lot more money to repair it because the repair is going to get worse. And I feel like it's possible that the weather is partly the cause. Like it can't go through another winter of rain without getting fixed, if that makes sense. So if that is the case, please take care of that sooner rather than later for your own safety. Last thing that I have is I see Ava, the oldest one, Ava. A lot going on this year. And it's all things that you really want to be involved in as much as you can, obviously. I mean, I see a lot of excitement from you. It's not so much, oh my God, all this stuff. It's just everything that she's going through, you get really excited about. And I just I feel like your brother is coming through to tell you it's like he's punching you in the shoulder and doing and going, good job. I mean, that means so much to her that you are so excited about it. With her, and I kind of feel like sometimes you feel like maybe you should give her space. I don't think that's what it's about. I think she enjoys the hell out of you being excited about it, and she will tell you when she wants her space. I'm just gonna put it that way. So that's what I have for you, Amanda. Moving on to Sheri, my friend Sheri. Hi, Sheri. Okay, so this is what's going down this week. Okay, first of all, nothing. All week long, nothing. Focus is on Sheri. Hey. Focus is on self this week. And the moon comes into Sagittarius right at the end of the week on the 1st. So it's not that nothing happens this week. It's up until then. I don't see anything major happening. Or anything that you need to be aware of. We'll put it that way. But this moon coming in is a problem. There's already Neptune in Pisces. You know, Matt and Maddie should really listen to this, by the way. There's already Neptune in Pisces, Mercury in Virgo, Mars in Gemini. The moon coming into Sagittarius basically looks like this. Sheri, Matt, Maddie, and Tony. It's the only Gemini I can think of that you would be in this situation with. And you all have your own different opinions, and you're all fighting with each other. And you're all yelling at each other, and nobody's listening to each other. That's what a mutable Grand Cross looks like. Now, Mercury's retrograde in Virgo still this week. I don't know about you, but I have yelled Mercury's an asshole at least 5 times a day for the last week and a half. Okay, it's just been one thing after another. It has not just been like that for me. I've heard that from a lot of people, including people that don't follow horoscopes or know anything about Mercury at all. It has created a lot of complications, and because this is for you, it's ruled by the moon. I almost want to say, in your view, as if I'm standing in Sheri's body and looking at these 3 other people. This is I've had it up to here and I'm done emotional outburst. The problem is that all 3 other people have their own view of the situation, their own feelings about the situation. And their own history with the situation. So no one is listening to anyone in the situation. If there is a problem, and I'm talking to Sheri here, not anybody else who may be listening. I'm talking to Sheri and only Sheri. And I want everybody to hear me say this to Sheri and Sheri only. If you want things to change, you have to approach it in a different way. So I see this emotional outburst happening because Sheri is overwhelmed. Sheri feels like she's doing it all by herself. I think she knows that she's not 100%, but I can see where you're coming from with that. And the way that you deal with that stress is not necessarily embraced by everybody, which creates this emotional outburst. The issue with it is that the way that it's being dealt with is not working. There has to be another way to approach the problem. And the way to approach the problem in a way that it will get resolved is by sitting down, not standing there yelling, everybody yelling, but sitting down and having a discussion and listening to everybody else. And you don't listen to respond, you listen to understand, which means you have to listen from down here. You cannot listen from here, and you sure as hell ain't listening from here. And I'm not telling you any of this because I'm trying to tell you what to do. I am simply stating that this whole thing is lined up perfectly to be a huge fucking disaster. You get to choose which way that pendulum swings. Is it going to be a disaster, or are you going to fix a problem that, yes, needs to be fixed? And I'm not saying that you have a problem and you need to fix it. The communication problem all the way around needs to be fixed for you, for Maddie, and for Matthew. And I also want to say, it seems late in the video, but a big happy birthday to my little girl, because I'm recording on your birthday. This is the second time, Maddie, that you've made me cry in these videos. I will have you know that I don't like that. But I love you to pieces. And I hope that right now, while I'm recording this, you are having an excellent day turning 18 years old. And I love you all. And that is all I have to say about that. And I'm going to move on to Peg. Hi, Peg. Okay. No planets in Sagittarius. Focuses on self. I see two things about that for you, or how that plays out for you, I should say, with focus on self. The first thing is I kind of feel like you are I don't it's not it changes in your diet. Okay. I couldn't put words to it. I feel like you're in the process of making changes to your diet, if that makes sense. Adding something, omitting something. I'm not really 100% sure. I think it could even be a little bit of both to a certain extent. But I do see making some subtle changes in your diet, not humongous ones necessarily, but maybe even to the extent of shopping around, looking for new things to kind of incorporate into your diet, if that makes sense, just to keep things interesting, to keep things from getting boring, I guess, if that makes sense. Because I kind of feel like as much as you enjoy your new health, that has kind of been a thing lately, and it's like your mind just kind of wanders off to, I don't miss food, but I miss food, if that makes sense. And we have such a horrendous view of what quote unquote good food is these days. So if I were to refer to it as good food, it's actually not good food. It's not good for you. What you're eating is good food. It just has a tendency, I think, to get bland, to be bland every now and then, and or boring. And I just see you kind of trying to incorporate new things to shake things up a little bit in terms of your diet. I also am picking up on I want to say, I feel like either there's an opportunity to spend time with somebody that you haven't seen in a really long time, and I kind of sort of get like I'm on a teeter-totter with it. Like, am I happy to see this person after not seeing him for a really long time, or am I kind of nervous? I feel like the meeting is overall going to go well. I mean, I don't really see anything bad. But I also kind of see you leaving it like, well, I could have left that one alone, if that makes sense. Not that it was a bad encounter, but sort of what you expected, and not necessarily something to get excited about, I guess. Um, if that makes any sense. The moon comes into Sagittarius right at the end of the week on the 1st, and this is the challenge here, really. Thankfully it's the moon, so it's only a day, but we already have planets. We have Mercury in retrograde in Virgo. We have Mars in Gemini. Pardon me. We have Neptune in Pisces. They're all mutable signs. When the moon comes into the last mutable sign, it creates what's called a mutable grand cross. Now, grand crosses are huge challenges. So luckily it's just the moon, and it's only a day, but it creates this chaos. Mutable energy is just, there's no direction to it. It's constantly moving from here to there. It's like Speedy Gonzalez, there's really I really have no destination. I'm just running from here to there and to everywhere. Because the moon was influencing this for you, I feel like this will play out in one of those ways where it sort of feels like, I don't want to say everybody's against you, but it's just one thing after another encounter that's unpleasant after another. It kind of does feel like the world is against you, if that makes any sense at all. And it's not, it's just a very stressful and unorganized day. So it really is about managing your emotions through that. The more you're able to do that, the easier it will be in the long run. And then you can always just duck out early and call it a day at 8:30 if you need to, and let the day be done, kind of a thing. So that's what I have for you, Peg. And finally, we're moving on to Mama Sheri. Hi, Mama Sheri. Okay, so no planets in Sagittarius until Saturday when the moon comes in, creating this ginormous challenge that will make everybody around you crazy. And you have to be very careful that you don't open yourself up to these crazy people pulling you into their crazy. Especially with the moon being an influence. Focus is on self this week. So I feel like for you, you always seem to go through these improvement cycles, if that makes sense. Like you're moving the kitchen around in order to make it even more efficient than it was 2 weeks ago. I feel that's happening in your office space right now, actually. But I also kind of feel like you're taking inventory of yourself, what you do, and sort of trying to come up with new ways of doing it, if that makes sense. I agree that after a while, it does feel like it's dragging you down, what we do. Or it just gets dang boring because you're saying the same thing over and over again. I think anything that you love gets to be redundant. And so I kind of sort of see you coming up with ideas, maybe restructuring, moving things around in your space to sort of maybe freshen things up a little bit, and maybe even in some ways come up with some new ideas of doing some different things, if that makes sense. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I feel like with this mutable grand cross coming up for you, I just want to say that first of all, there are those situations that come up where somebody else is going through something, they're having a problem, and they sort of push it off on you, like blame you for something in order to take the blame off of themselves and put it on somebody else. And I see this sort of coming up, and it really has the power to kind of throw you for a loop a little bit and have you feeling like you should take that blame, but really it has nothing to do with you, if that makes sense. So I'm going to say that when this opportunity, when the situation comes up, rather than taking on what is being given to you, you need to be aware that this isn't yours. They're trying to transfer it to make themselves feel better, which we both know is not going to work, right? There's no reason for you to take that up and turn it into, let me spend some time beating up on myself because I failed, kind of a thing. Okay. So that's what I have for you. And I love you. And that's what I have for everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out and watching. I'm Melissa Bruce, the Heavy Metal Psychic, and I will see you guys next week. You guys have a great week.